Hi, everyone. This is Scarlett Johnson with Unleashed, presented by Moms for Liberty. And with me is special guest back on again, former Oklahoma State Superintendent and now CEO of the Teacher Freedom Alliance. The Teacher Freedom Alliance is a brand new effort launched with the Freedom Foundation to finally give teachers an alternative to the radical union machine. And when we say radical, we mean it, because last week, there was an explosive report revealed by Defending Education about the NEA, the National Education Association, which is the largest teachers union, I think the largest public sector union, maybe it's definitely the largest teachers union, right, Ryan, in the country, has 3 million members and is the only one with a federal charter. And it was just explosive what we learned, that their focus in December at a conference is going to be almost exclusively gender ideology. And so I wanted to bring Ryan on to discuss it, as he is an expert in this field. So Ryan, thanks for coming on and talking to us about this explosive report and what it means.
No, thank you. And, Scarlett, is just another day, another, scheme from the left-wing teachers union. And I want to give Defending Ed a lot of credit. Great deep dive into this of really uncovering these documents, because we've really seen it. And Moms for Liberty, y'all done a great job of exposing it. But they really try to operate in secrecy, where you don't see what all their trainings are. You don't see what all they're telling teachers union members behind closed doors. But this really gives us a great look into this is what they're telling teachers to do in the classroom.
Yes, and I'm going to put some of this on stage. So here is one of the handouts, the participant handouts, Advancing LGBTQ plus Justice and Transgender Advocacy. Particularly after Mahmoud, that most recent decision, you would think that they might pull back, but instead they're doubling down. They're all in on this gender ideology.
And I think it's so important for everyone to understand. And I know that all the moms out there get this at a level that many don't, but they don't go away. They don't, once they're exposed, they don't stop. They continue to find ways to inject this in the classroom, because, again, this is their ideology. Frankly, it is their religion. They believe that promoting transgenderism in our schools, promoting every left-wing advocacy, is really their role. You hear Randy Weingarten, frankly, she's been more open about this than she has in the past. Their goal is to become social justice warriors in the classroom and create more of them. And so what they do is, again, when you look at their trainings, when you look at what they're actually doing to teachers, it's not bringing in, how do you do high dosage tutoring? It's not, when a kid doesn't understand the basics in math, what are the best practices to catch them back up? That's not the trainings that they're doing. It's not their point of emphasis. Their point of emphasis is, teachers, we're going to train you to be an arm of the Democrat Party. And by the way, I say an arm of the Democrat Party. I would say this is even the most radical elements of the Democrat Party. You even have some Democrats going, okay, guys, not in schools, right? Like, let's not, that's a bridge too far. No, the NEA goes, no. Our role in our schools is to indoctrinate the next generation, to win elections, and to continue this power structure and turn this country further left. And so you see it here in these documents. Again, there's not reading, math, history, science. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about them saying, we're going to teach you how to advocate for transgender ideology, kindergarten all the way through high school. How do you start making kids at the youngest of ages believe this is acceptable, start buying into these lies about changing gender, all the way up through high school, and then pushing this content. And again, you see, when this is partnered with what's going on in higher ed, we know how bad the college and university system is with Marxism. I mean, these kids don't have much of a shot once they enter in this line of indoctrination, starting off at you're looking at kids as young as 3 and 4 that start having this injected on them all the way up into their 20s. That's nearly 20 years of indoctrination we're talking about here.
Yes, they bring in images of the gender unicorn, where they talk about gender expression, gender expansion. And the gender unicorn is a cartoonish character meant for preschoolers 3 and 4 years old. They have a pronoun guide. That's the first thing you see. This is a guide for NEA leaders, members, and staff to better understand and use pronouns in a respectful way. at all NEA meetings and communications. So they're talking about how they're going to force the members to use pronouns. They're going to force teachers to and educators to compel, they're going to compel speech. And that's in spite of a recent decision, a federal appellate court decision in Ohio, again, with Defending Ed, specifically said that they could not compel the speech of teachers. And these teachers are going to get a huge settlement. They still don't care. They're still like, well, we're going to compel the pronoun use. We're going to teach them how to be effective LGBTQIA plus advocates, not how to be more effective teachers in the classroom, not how can we raise these abysmal testing scores. No, how can we better train you to be foot soldiers for social justice?
And that's what I think is so key for people to understand about the teachers union. It is bullying folks to join. They tell teachers they have to join. They won't have protections if they don't join. They won't get their contract signed if they don't join. All of these lies, they get them in the union, and this is what they push on them. This is what they require of them. These are the trainings that go on there. So again, you've got the bullying tactics of forcing teachers to join, which again is part of what the Teacher Freedom Alliance we're fighting against. But then secondly, you look at what they're doing here. It is absolutely intentional. And Scarlett, I'm a history teacher is my former background. It's amazing because they know what they're doing. It is absolutely trying to train this in our kids at the youngest grades. I'm reminded of Rudyard Kipling. He wrote the Jungle Book. Yes. He also wrote an incredible poem that every student should be reading called The Gods of the Copybook Headings. And they talk about, hey, in British education, they used to make you memorize things like Bible verses and moral quotes every day because they knew at the youngest of ages, driving in that morality is important, that the basics in education are important for the later stages where you do a deeper dive. And then in that poem, they warn about, well, if you teach them the wrong lessons at the earliest age, you're actually sending them on this really terrible path. And you're seeing that play out here. So again, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing is conditioning kids from the earliest ages to be obsessed with sexuality, to be obsessed with being gay or lesbian, being obsessed with transgenderism. So then when they get older, they can push this ideology even further. And you continue to see in this breakdown of documents, it starts with the unicorn pushing sexuality and homosexuality at the earliest grades, and it gets even more aggressive as they get older.
Yes, they supply the Cornell University Transgender Guide to Transitioning and Gender Affirmation in the Workplace. This is just crazy. This is insane. And they use that you're a former history teacher. In the cover, they use words like liberating, inclusive and liberating, referencing liberation, like the liberation movement and liberation ideology. There's liberated ethnic studies. It's a new form of history in which we don't actually teach kids any history. We teach them about oppression. We teach them, the history through the lens of like Howard Zinn. So what? Maybe you could enlighten about this whole liberation ideology and liberated ethnic studies and how it's so corrosive.
I'm glad you brought that up. Good, Scarlett. You know all this frontwards and backwards, but to tell your audience, as a history teacher, to give you some context here, the most prominent history book in American schools, K-12 and college, was a book by Howard Zinn called The People's History of the United States. And what that book was, it was basically a total reversal of the way, 30 or 40 years ago, if you went into a K-12 school, you were going to be taught about the founders, right? You were going to be taught about these values that they believed in, the principles America was founded on, the Declaration of Independence. What did that mean? What was different about the American experiment as compared to Europe, as compared to other places around the country? That is not Howard Zinn's history of America. Howard Zinn's history of America is that America is a terrible place, full of oppression. It's not redeemable. It's not valuable. We have to look at it from the lens. And again, it's critical race theory. Everything is bad. Everything is about oppression. Everything is about slavery. Everything is about America wanting to gain in power at the expense of different people groups. So that's what your kids, that is what this next generation has been reading in schools. Again, it's a very different view of history. And again, to great point there, what they do is they take terms like liberate, they take terms like freedom, they take terms like individual rights, and they morph it into all about sexuality, homosexuality, transgenderism. That's not what was being talked about in the 17 and 1800s in America. You're not going to find that in Jefferson's letters. But what they do is they warp American history into being this very anti-American view, very much an America is always the bad guy. Most Americans were bad. And then they shift it into really what these terms are about, or should be about, is about sexuality, transgenderism, when in reality, that wasn't part of these discussions at all. You're not going to find that in the Federalist Papers.
Yes.
You're not going to find that in history. But that is what they have done to indoctrinate the next generation moving forward.
They're not going to be learned. They don't know what the Federalist Papers are, but if you looking at right now, I have on screen the National Chicano Moratorium. This is an example lesson plan of liberated ethnic studies. This would be what an incoming freshman would learn. And it says the purpose of this lesson is to bring about a critical historical consciousness of the national Chicano movement. And there's all these buzzwords, which Ryan, when you're in education: critical, consciousness, liberation, all of this, it's kind of code words for this cultural Marxist view. And it sounds good, liberation, but liberation and liberty are very different things.
That's right. And what you continue to see is them change their terminology once we uncover what the terminology means. Remember, it was critical race theory about 10 years ago. Then they changed it into DEI. Now they're changing it into inclusivity and liberation. So what you continue to see is the left playing word games to try to keep parents in the dark of, oh, no, we don't do critical race theory. No, we don't do DEI. No, look at the lessons themselves. It's the same content. America bad. America's always the evildoer in these stories. And again, they continue to promote this victimology in the classroom of, hey, if you're a student that's a minority, if you're a female, America is out to get you. And that is very, first of all, it's wrong, right? Number two, it's very detrimental to your kids, because again, if your kids grow up believing that this country has always been at war with them or fighting them or attacking them, they're not obviously going to be patriotic. They're obviously not going to love this country. They're obviously not going to have an understanding and a love for the principles our country was founded on, which history shows us have led us on the path to be the greatest country in the history of the world. That's the type of education they should be receiving and understanding. But instead, it is a hatred for America. It is a hatred for so many of the values that cause this country to be great. And this is what we're talking about when you see these kids and you see, we were, I can't even say the words the kids were using here on air, but in North Carolina, the things they were saying about ICE agents in America, these protests in the schools. Well, guys, that didn't happen by accident. The kids didn't walk in one day and say, oh, I think America is evil. I think all of our policies, I think President Trump and conservatives are evil. What happened is they were indoctrinated over time to believe that if you're a conservative, if you're someone that frankly just has common sense, you're a fascist, you're evil. And you see the kids reacting to what they've been indoctrinated with.
Yes. I know 5 years ago, we would talk about critical race theory and they'd say, oh, we don't have critical race theory. What are you talking about? Well, they had coined equity. So now equity was actually critical race theory, and you had to fully understand and really go to the professional development to understand what they're doing. And now the equity has now been that word has been exposed. They'll come up with a new word: belonging, like you said, inclusion. It's always going to be a word salad, but they're not going anywhere. So the National Education Association is the largest teachers union in the United States, 3 million members. This summer, Becky Pringle gave a keynote speech, in which she looked like she was about to start dancing around with a snake, like snakes. It was like a tent revival for like a religious tent revival. That's what it looked like to me. She was screaming, like she had the vapors. It's unreal. And she makes $500,000 a year doing her job, and probably a lot of expenses paid for. They have a lot of luxurious vacations, and they call them like their seminars. And they have a charter. They're since I believe 1906, a federal charter. So what can we do about the NEA?
And that's a great point. I think folks have to understand these union bosses, this is not Miss Johnson, third grade teacher. These union bosses are some of the most active, aggressive, left-wing political activists in the country. So when you look at folks like Becky Pringle, when you look at folks like Randy Weingarten, again, these are not your classroom teachers. These are union mob bosses that are there to push an agenda, that are there to organize an army by force, by the way, and then utilize them for their ends. And so, number one, we should eliminate that federal charter. So, Congress should act on that. We should see immediately, why in the world would you have a federal charter for something that's undermining the very country that we live in? Number two, guys, in all the states across the country, we should be passing legislation to not allow the unions to take from a teacher's paycheck automatically. Why in the world would you allow them to utilize taxpayer dollars, taxpayer resources to grow their union membership? Why would you allow them to have offices that are paid for by taxpayers? Why would you allow them to house on school grounds? That's crazy. Okay. So again, get the unions out of the schools, get the unions to stop using taxpayer resources to grow their membership. These are things that have to be done because, again, they have built in an institution that will continue to grow itself, that will continue to self-perpetuate until we stop those things. So it's so important. There are mechanisms that can be done at the state level, at the federal level, that help tremendously. And then what you're doing, Scarlett, exactly what the Moms for Liberty and so many parents are doing around the country. Sound the alarm so that folks know, taxpayers know, hey, you got kids in school. If you don't have kids in school, is this what your tax dollars going to? Is this what you want your schools to look like for the future of the country? It's so important that folks understand the monopoly the unions have on power in our education system. And the people left out of that are parents. So the more power they have, the more power they are stripping from parents. And that's why you see them fight so doggedly to keep parents out of the process, to force good teachers to join their union, even if they don't want to, because again, it's about a power struggle for our education system that they know will lead to future elections and what the next generation will look like.
Yes, and in these documents, they called Republicans, conservatives, villains, openly called villains. And so imagine this is professional development. You have educators from across the country. They're coming in and they are going to be schooled on how to pass out coloring pages of a gender unicorn where little kids can color in their identity, like what is their identity, what's their expression, and asking all sorts of personal questions. And I guarantee you that these will be handouts that parents will not see. And they're giving them to kids so young that perhaps if you don't ask the right question, your kid's not going to tell you. You could say, how was school? And, oh, fine. So maybe you don't even find out that they were asked these questions. And how can a little child wrap their mind around such questions when, they play make-believe? These are kids that still believe in the tooth fairy. And then you're asking them, oh, what's your gender? And it's just ridiculous. On top of that, to call conservatives or people that support Trump villains means that they are entering into a classroom. And if you have a child in that classroom, they're viewing you as a villain. You're a villain. You're a bad person. So that really bothers me as a parent, that the person that would be educating my child and spending time with them during the day would think that I'm a villain. That's morally reprehensible.
And that's such an important part of this as well, is it's pushing the indoctrination. It's also turning kids against their parents, because they know if you look at what Karl Marx talks about, you look at kind of those tenets of Marxism, you've got to break down the societal units in order to get your agenda across. So there's attacks on religion. You see the attacks on Christianity. You see the attacks on Judaism, right? It's to break down those societal bonds. The second part, and the most basic the most basic unit of society, is the family unit. So they want to break down those family units so that when they come in with indoctrination and the kid goes home and tells mom and dad, well, I think I'm a new gender today, the mom and dad go, hold on a second. That's not the way it works, right? No, that's not. Well, remember, they've already conditioned the kid to believe, if you believe that, if you're a conservative, if you have just a traditional mindset of what 99.99% of people believe just like 15 years ago, you're evil. You're a fascist. You're a terrible person. So when that conversation happens, that distance between the child and the parent grows even wider, because the kid now looks at their mom and dad and go, oh, I didn't know mom and dad were evil. I didn't know they were bad. So now they're not going to listen to mom and dad in the future. So it continues this divide between parents and their kids. And again, that's very intentional, because that leads to a very opening for them to continue to indoctrinate their kids without that parental support, without the kids wanting to go back to their parents. And again, any good teacher would tell you that you want to do the opposite, right? As a teacher, I was always encouraging mom, dad, I want you to see everything we're doing. I want you to be as involved as, but you want to email me every day? That's great. Let's talk every day, because the more involved you are, the better off your kid's going to be. So I want questions. I want you to see what I'm doing. And again, that's where the transparency part is so key. In Oklahoma, we had the unions fight against us, and we just said, hey, we want to make every option available for parents. Why is that a bad thing? But again, it tells you the motive. They want it hidden. They want to keep it from parents so that they can continue to push this agenda.
Yeah, that's a good point, that they are not only dividing parents and children, but they're causing a divide between parents and teachers. And that's a really essential relationship. When they are telling teachers, no, they're bad, they're villains, that means they're taking maybe some very young teachers new to the profession and filling their heads full of these ideas that are going to make it difficult for them to reach out to parents. They're going to view them with skepticism and fear, even like they're bad people, they're fascists, like we can't, I don't know what to do. And so they are intentionally putting a wedge between a relationship that needs to flourish. Parents need to talk to teachers, and teachers need to talk to parents. And kids do better when they act as partners together. For that year, that there's a partnership, that there's a good working relationship. That means the kids, and the kids can't come home and say, oh, the teacher did this, and then tell the teacher, oh, mom and dad said this. Young kids will often, to get out of something, they'll try to, if you're not communicating, the kids will try and manipulate that situation. If you're communicating, they can't. And that used to be the dilemma that I was faced with my kids. Like if my son would say, oh, my teacher didn't give me that homework, I'd say, oh, well, you know what, I'm going to give them a call. Then suddenly, oh, wait. Now I'm thinking about it, they did give you them, because they knew I was going to reach out and say something. So that it's really important that there's this community, that there's this real community, not their fake community, not their glitter community, but in a real community, you work together, you talk things out. But instead, they're putting all of these wedges, and these wedges give them more power.
That's exactly right. And again, think about when they're talking to teachers and they're telling them to view these parents as fascists, as evil, what they're wanting that teacher to view the parent as. It's somebody, if you really believe somebody's a fascist, would you trick them? Would you manipulate them? Would you hide things from them? That's exactly what they're wanting the teachers to do. So they're saying, listen, these are really bad people. Okay. So here's what you need to do. Don't let them see what you're doing in the classroom. Sneak it around them. Don't get a relationship with them. It doesn't matter what they think. As a matter of fact, they're an enemy to the work that you're doing. Mm-hmm. So when they build that in with teachers, with their union membership, it is one of the most detrimental things you can do for a kid, is driving them against their parents and then having the parents out of the process. I mean, again, we want parents involved in the process. If you're a good teacher, hey, I want the more parents are involved, the better off the kid's going to be. First of all, just health wise, just as a better life, but academically, you want that parent to know exactly everything that's going on. But again, they break down those fundamental. Think about this. Education is always really three parts. You got teacher, you got student, you have parent. Okay. It's kind of like this little triangle, right? All three need to be involved. All three need to be engaged. All three need good communication. You do that, you have good curriculum, kid is really set up for success. Well, what they're trying to do is break that apart and say, no, we're carving out that side of the triangle with the parent. We want it just to be teacher student. And what we want is our teachers to push this agenda. So that third leg there of the triangle, we want that knocked out. We want you to view them in this negative light so that we don't have to deal with parents anymore. We don't have to be checked on our ideology. It will continue to flow between teacher and student without even, and frankly, without even the parents knowing, because we're going to hide it. We're going to fight transparency. We're not going to let them see what's going on in the classroom.
And your organization, Teacher Freedom Alliance, is doing something that I think is really critical, because I think that too often over the last 5 years, teachers will look at activists like myself or Moms for Liberty and think, oh, they hate me. They think I'm a bad person. And that's not true. And that's why I love this report by Defending Ed about the NEA, because we need to go after the real villains of this situation, which are the teachers' unions, which are these for-profit groups. I mean, they say they're nonprofit, but they're making a lot of money creating this divisive curriculum and then peddling it. Poverty pimps, like Shelby Steele called them, they're poverty pimps. They make a ton of money on the backs of the poor, the working poor, those who need education the most. They're using them. And then the only people, and you know this, the only people that you can hire for this DEI are their groups. You hire them, you spend a fortune, you bring them in. And this is the kind of stuff right here that they're going to be providing in professional development. How did I get this? From a teacher. A teacher shared this with me. So there are good teachers out there that don't want this. All of the information that I get from teachers, whistleblowers who want to expose this. And the last anecdote, I was recently at a conference. I was sitting at a round table with all educators, and they see I'm like, oh, I'm with Moms for Liberty. And I could feel like the kind of tension. By the end, Ryan, they all had my card. They're like, you're nothing like I thought. I'm like, I want teachers to make more money. I want this to be one of the highest paying professions possible, but they're doing their job. And I want them to have the flexibility and freedom to do what works in the classroom, because every year your student population changes. I want you to be supported. I want you to have the resources you need. I want less administrators and more specialists. And they're like, yes, everything you're saying, yes. I want there to be tools in your toolbox to discipline. And I think with parental rights come parent responsibility. The parents have responsibilities, and they can't drop their kids off and expect the schools to parent children. And they're just like, yes, everything you're saying, yes. So by the end, I was surrounded by probably Democrats. We didn't talk politics. We just talked education. And they saw, I agree with her more than I do with my union boss.
So this is the really fascinating thing about everything is that good teachers believe in the Moms for Liberty message. Good teachers believe in all the reforms you just laid out. What the teachers unions have done is, and now remember, if you're a teacher, you're sitting you're working, you're a good teacher, you're working hard. You get an email from the teachers union today telling you how evil Trump is, how much he hates you, how much the Moms for Liberty hates you, how much conservatives hate you. And over time you go, I mean, yeah, these emails sound really bad. They really sound like they don't like me, even though I'm trying to do a good job. But what they've done is not only do they indoctrinate kids, they indoctrinate and lie to good teachers. And they say, listen, we're out advocating for you, yada, yada, yada. They're not. What they have done is, remember, the unions have a grand bargain with school boards, school board associations, and administrators associations. And their deal is, we just get as much money into the pot as possible, and then we get our cut. So they don't care that, again, administrative growth has grown through the roof in our public school system. We fought that here in Oklahoma and said, hey, no, I want less administrators. I want more money going directly to resources for kids and teacher pay. Why are we doubling, tripling administrative costs when we are getting rid of the Federal Department of Education? We're slashing these bureaucratic requirements, and yet you guys are hiring more administrators, not supporting the teachers in the classroom. So when you get to teachers and tell them all this, they go, oh, hold on a second. I agree with all of that. And that's what's so important about the work we're doing at the Teacher Freedom Alliance is we've got thousands of teachers from all over the country that are going, sign me up. That's exactly what we want for the kids. It's exactly what we want for the classroom. So their eyes are open to, guys, the unions are not fighting for the things that you want. They're actually just fighting for their own power, their own control. The reality is conservatives, the message that we have for education, it not only benefits kids, it not only benefits parents, it actually benefits good teachers as well. That is the big lie that they have pushed, which is that, Moms for Liberty, conservatives are anti-teacher. No, we're not. Well, we support good teachers. We know that good teachers in the classroom make all the difference in the world for our kids. What we are fighting against is a left-wing power structure that is lying to good teachers, that is manipulating the education system, and that is indoctrinating our kids.
And how many public school teachers feel about public education when you discover that so many of them send their own children to private school or to a lot. One of we have school board members that don't claim they don't like Moms for Liberty. Their kids all go to Catholic schools. They're sitting board members in my district, and their kids go to private school because they know, they get it.
Yeah,
they know what's going on.
Let me give you another big lie they love to push on teachers. We fight for school choice because we go, look, if a parent wants to send their kid to a public school or private school or homeschool, that's great. Hey, parents, you know best. Let's let you decide. They tell teachers this is going to ruin you, your salary, everything else. And I'm going, guys, let's just take a step back. So if parents get to choose wherever their kids go to school, do you know what the number one thing a parent looks for in a school? They look for, how good's the teacher, right? Like, I want to trust the teacher. I want a good teacher. I want to make sure that when my kids go to school, they have a good teacher. So guess what that means? Good teachers, you're valued more in a system where parents decide, because parents don't want bureaucracy. Parents don't want more administrators. Parents don't want a left-wing bias to everything their kids get. They want a good teacher. So the more that you give parents power and control and protect parents' rights, the more teachers are actually valued in an education system. The reason that you see good teachers undervalued in the education system now is because of the left-wing bureaucracy that is just built in to grow their own power. It's not to improve education. If it was, they would value the teachers more. If it was, you would see things like merit pay for good teachers. You would see things like bonuses when you hit certain academic indicators. You would see more, but that's not what they value. They value power and control. So they actually are working against your good teachers in your districts.
So there's a lot of reform that needs to happen. When you're talking about administrators in my own school district, we had gone from, when I was running for school board, I think I had found that we had doubled the size of administrators. And in fact, the year that I was running, we gained 3 administrators, lost 6 full-time teaching positions. So 6 teachers had either retired or they moved, and they were not filling those positions, but they added 3 more administrators. So so in a way, they're taking advantage of a situation where there's a retired teacher, and so they're at the top of their pay. They get rid of them and they hire another administrator, and now they're just bringing on part-time. So there's all sorts of schemes that they're doing where they don't have to provide full benefits and stuff. So it's understandable that there are teachers that are like, that my pay is not going up to the inflationary rate, but there are administrators that are making 6 figures. And it's really, if we can just talk to them and tell them, take a look, like, why are we so top heavy? Why don't you have the reading and math specialists? When an equity team will come through a district, oftentimes the first thing that they will get rid of, math specialists, reading specialists, gifted and talented programs, and special ed programs. And instead, they will use the equity framework, and you'll bring in DEI consultants that will tell a teacher, now you have to wear all those hats. Now you are special ed teacher. You are gifted and talented teacher. You are general ed teacher. And it's that is why there's so many teachers leaving the profession. It's not because of Moms for Liberty. It's because under this current scheme, teachers have to take on more responsibility. They have their pay is not rising to that responsibility. They remove all the tools in their toolbox to effectively govern their classroom. So they can't discipline at all. There's nothing they can do. Their classroom, they have one child that's causing problems, and there's absolutely nothing that they can do. Or, because the state bureaucracy, and how that, you could talk about that. And then, so they're like, why am I even doing this anymore? So we're losing good teachers. The unions try and blame us, but really they need to look in the mirror. They are the reason why.
That's right. I mean, in our schools now, we hire more non-teachers than teachers. Think about how absurd that is. What is the point of a school? The point of a school is to help educate kids, right? It's to bring in teachers that partner with parents that help them with math, reading, history, science, right? That is what the school is there to design to do, is to bring in these specialists, these teachers, to help educate kids. So why do we have more non-teachers in our schools than teachers? Now what an administrator and what a lot of these folks claim is, well, it's bus drivers, cafeteria workers. No, it's not. Okay. No, it's not. The reason you're seeing more non-teachers than teachers hired by our schools is because you've got DEI offices, because you've got assistant to the local superintendent. Think about this. You have a superintendent, assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, vice principal, blah, blah, blah. You go through all these administrative positions. They've created deans of students. You start looking at this going, hold on a second. Just a few years ago, none of these positions existed. So what you continue to see is the growth of the DEI bureaucracy that has ballooned in school budgets. So instead of hiring good teachers, instead of paying teachers better, instead of to your point, you look at programs like gifted and talented, special education. Instead of getting more folks involved in those type of programs, it's more administrative staff, more bureaucracy, more DEI offices. That is what they've done with taxpayer dollars, not improve the classrooms. And frankly, the problem isn't about money. We have plenty of money in education. The problem is the way the money is spent in education. It is not spent in a student-first mentality. It is not spent on what's best for the kids. It's spent on what is best for the administrators and the unions, and that's a fundamental problem in our schools.
This gives me the opportunity to talk about something that I posted on in my personal account. I'm trying to find it, but I exposed something that happened in Madison, Wisconsin. So they just passed last year a $500 million referendum for buildings, and then $100 million for operational costs. And so they wanted a new logo. So they hired a firm in Kentucky. They didn't even hire a local Wisconsin firm. They hired a firm in Kentucky to create a logo. The very next day, someone gifted them a logo. And they're like, oh, great, we'll use this logo. They still wrote the check for $100,000 to the company they hired to create a logo because they signed a contract they could not get out of. This was fun money to them. It's monopoly money. $100,000. They didn't even blink an eye. They spent that money without even they didn't have a discussion about it. They didn't talk to the community about it. They have so much money, they don't even care how $100,000 was flushed down the toilet. How many kids that could have hired two specialists, two part-time specialists to come in, or one full-time teacher. That $100,000.
Yeah.
And no one even blinks an eye. No one cares. And this is why they don't have business degrees, these administrators. They don't know what they're doing. They always claim they need more money. And I guarantee you, WEAC, which is the Madison extension of NEA, all they do is cry, we need more money. They got $600 million and they still want more money. It's never enough.
And they view taxpayer money as monopoly money, as funny money. I mean, they don't view it as these are taxpayer dollars that are resources here for us to make sure kids are being educated. They view it as, oh, great, we got more money to go spend. And you make a great point there too of, why in the world we have all these administrators that don't have any kind of business background. They don't have any kind of, again, you have most states that block you from being a school administrator unless you have a school administrator degree. And I go, okay, so if somebody's a successful business person, they can't come in and help run a school. That doesn't make any sense, right? But they fundamentally set up a system that perpetuates their views, their left-wing views, protects bureaucracy, protects government. And that's what you end up seeing are things that, like you said right there. I've got so many anecdotes of schools spending money like that.
You do.
They don't have any kind of a view that this is for the kids, that this is taxpayer dollars. It is a view that we've got the money, so we're going to spend it how we want. So, Scarlett, I really appreciate you having me on and talking through all of those things, because again, I think it's so fundamental that there's an understanding that that's how broken the system is.
So would a solution be then that we have to, because oftentimes you can only hire somebody that has a degree in education, a PhD. So a
Yeah.
solution would be to start to break apart this monopoly, is to start hiring people that do not have a degree in teaching, that have subject matter experience and expertise, and they could get a teaching certificate in a year while teaching. They could go in, if you were a biologist, now you're, let's say, you're 60 and retiring early, want to give back, hey, come on and teach biology.
Mm-hmm.
And you're more than qualified to do it, and you can get a teaching certificate. There's certain skills, that certain things to learn. Why don't we do that more? And as far as administrators, I think let's hire people with degrees in business, because when my husband, who's in business, he blows his mind. He can't even handle it when he looks at the way money is spent in a school district. He's like, this would never fly in the real world.
Oh, absolutely. You got to break down the silos and say, listen, we want good, successful people in our schools. We want to help more people get in. We're not trying to create all these hoops for you to jump through, because remember, so many of these hoops are there because they want you to go to the college and university classes that teach you to be social justice warriors, to push you through this Marxism and indoctrination there, instead of saying, hey, listen, hey, if you know what you're talking about, again, to your point, the number one indicator of if a teacher is going to be successful, especially beyond fifth grade, from an education standpoint, is subject matter expertise. Do they know what they're Of course, that's common sense, but it seems to be so lost these days. If you know what you're teaching, you're much more likely to be good at teaching it, right? So if you have people with subject matter expertise, let's get them in the classroom. Let's get them degreed. Let's get them the certifications they need. But let's move forward. But again, there's such a racket around teacher certification and the requirements there, because again, it's not meant to improve the educator. It's meant to force you into the system, so that you can be indoctrinated, is really what they're pushing.
And what if you're a mom like me, you've raised your kids, maybe encourage them, a program that says, we'll pay for you to get go maybe a year, 2-year program, and go and become a teacher. Go teach in kindergarten. That can be your act two. You've already raised kids. You can have, like, why don't you come and work for us? You probably have a bachelor's degree in something. I think to really encourage that, to go after those that have already raised kids and have a lot of life experience, and bring that into the classroom.
No, that's exactly right. Well, that is invaluable experience. You can't get a better experience than raising your own kids, or than understanding, what kids need, to understand how kids develop. And so, yeah, no, look, I mean, that's part of what you see from an establishment in academia that try to do this view of only we know, we have this kind of knowledge, nobody else no. Parents get it better than anybody. So again, the better we are at getting more parents involved, whether it's directly, like you said, a pathway to being a teacher, or just involved in the classroom in any capacity, the better off the kids are going to be for it. There's nobody that loves their kids, understands kids better than parents. We should be doing more of that, not less of it.
And I know you'll have to go soon. So 2 last questions. Does your organization provide professional development for teachers in lieu of this kind of NEA-funded professional development, where you'll get to sit through 2 days of basically a struggle session, where you're going to have to fill out, literally they give the teachers these coloring materials. You have to color pages about gender. I mean, it's really just kind of insulting what they're doing to educators. And to what are some of that? I see the Trump administration. What are some solutions to all of these problems that we are talking about, and how is the Trump administration offering some of those solutions?
Yeah, the first part, absolutely. We offer professional development. It's actually focused on academics. It's actually focused on what parents want for their kids. Actually focused on good teachers. I know it's
Revolutionary.
right. And we're actually transparent about it. You can go online. Hey, we post them. We're posting on our social media pages all the time. Hey, look at this clip from our PD. Look at this clip. Here's the information. Because again, we want to be transparent, but we also want to make sure that teachers are getting the trainings that they need, that are necessary for them to be the best teacher they can be. So again, we actually focus on academics. We actually focus on student growth. We actually focus on the things that our kids need and good teachers need. And look, President Trump has done a tremendous job. Eliminating that federal Department of Education is huge. Don't forget that is the teachers union's number one ask back in the 70s was we want a federal Department of Education so we have a government bureaucracy to push our agenda. So him taking that away, that fulfilling that promise that Republicans have made now for decades is huge. And the other part is their continued push to get our schools back on track on a focus on academics, away from this left-wing nonsense. I know that the Trump administration is always looking for ways to get our schools back on track so they continue to fight for things like school choice, parents' rights, and eliminating that federal Department of Education is a huge part of that.
And when even eliminating so that people know that they're moving these departments, they're not just slashing and your kid's not going to be able to get a college loan. They're moving things into other departments where they belong.
Right.
So they're taking the budgets, they're taking the programs, and they're just moving them into other agencies where there's a better fit, where they won't be the influence of these unions. Because I just had a talk with someone, oh, they are eliminated. I'm like, they are removing some things, some programs, like they just got rid of a health clinic that was in the Department of Education that saw it was it's like they're saving $500,000 a year, and it was open for maybe 2 hours a day, a few days a week. And as of the last fiscal year, had seen 60 patients, could provide no prescriptions. It was like, why is it even there? What is this clinic? And they're eliminating some waste. They're eliminating waste and grift and fraud, but they're moving essential programs into their rightful category.
And outside of an agency that was Marxist and left-wing to its core. So again, even when you had programs that people may support, they were funneling them through an agency that shouldn't have existed and that were a bunch of left-wing activists. So taking that apart and going, no. If this program wants to continue, if we think it's a valuable program, that's fine. But we're not going to funnel it through a Marxist Department of Education. We're going to sit here and say, look, college loan, this is the process. You're not going to funnel it where you have an agency that's constantly putting all of these left-wing, DEI processes onto what's going on. To your point, growing way outside of academics. No. Whatever programs we have are going to be very specific, very targeted, and very focused and very transparent with the public, not run through an agency that is a track record for undermining parents and promoting Marxism.
Yes. The best chance for success, red state, blue state, is going to be local control.
No.
As long as it's in the federal government, there's no hope. You're at the whim of whoever's elected. And look, even President Trump, even with the mandate that he was given, and that having control of the House and Senate, it is so difficult to move a bureaucracy. It's all Title IX, all of the executive orders and guidance is ultimately laying at the feet of the Supreme Court because they just refuse. I mean, this entire presentation from the NEA is illegal in at least half the states in this country by state statute, and I believe illegal, period, because it's violating federal law. But they're still doing it. They're still doing it, and they have to be stopped. And so before you go, I'm going to share the screen of your organization. This is a great organization, 100% needed, because we need to start building the bridges with our educators, coming up with better solutions, free market solutions, innovative solutions for teachers and for parents so that they have more choice.
That's right. And we're unapologetically, we're pro-parent, we're pro-America, we're pro-conservative traditional values. Look, that's what we're going to promote. That's what's best for our kids, is what's best for education. So yeah, anybody out there, join up. You don't have to be a teacher to join up. We want parents, taxpayers, help support the mission to get our schools back on track by making sure we've got good teachers in our schools. Teacherfreedom.com. We're going to continue to grow. We're going to continue to fight back against the radical union membership, and we're going to continue to partner with parents. We know parents know best for their kids. We're unapologetic about that. We know that that is key to a great education system. And so we're very excited to do the work and to work with good teachers, parents, and taxpayers across the country. So thank you for having me on, and I appreciate the shout out for the organization.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I'll have you on more. That's great. It's great because you have so much experience, and this is such a good organization. And it's off, because otherwise we could sit and talk and, oh, this is terrible, this is terrible. And then you're at the end, you're like, okay, call to action. Well, go to your school board meeting. You should do that, run for school board, all of those things, because local. But here are some solutions. If you have a teacher who you even think might be an ally, just give them this information. Tell them there are some options for you. Check this out. Listen, you don't have to say a word to me. You don't just go check it out, because you might see something that you like. And I just hope we can get the word out that Democrat, Republican, Independent, this doesn't matter. This is too important. We have to save education in America, because we are in a crisis. We are in a crisis when graduating seniors cannot do second grade math in America. This is crisis time.
Yep, that's right.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks so much for coming on. And I will share some more information in the comments.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. That was a great conversation with Ryan Walters of Teacher Freedom Alliance. It's clear that the crisis in education is not accidental. It's been engineered. And those orchestrating it, well, one of them is the NEA. The NEA is not failing. It's actually doing what it intended to do. And that's the scary part. And that's why Moms for Liberty is here and why we're rising. Because when the most powerful union in America turns its back on children, moms have to come forward. This isn't left versus right.